Good morning, everyone. I hope this day is treating you well so far. It's beautiful outside, and we have a wonderful hour planned for you. Our very special first guest this morning is one incredible lady. Is there anything she cannot do? She's an Academy Award-winning actress, singer, television veteran, mother, wife, and advocate. Shirley Jones joins us this morning, and if you have any questions for her, you can give us a call. Good morning.
Good morning.
You look wonderful.
Thank you.
You know that?
Thank you.
You just never change.
Oh, that's nice.
What do you do?
Thank
What's the
you.
secret?
I don't know. It's probably genes. I think it's genes, basically.
You must take good care of yourself,
And attitude. Yeah, I do. I think that I keep myself so busy, and you know, I'm still working and singing and doing all the things I've always done, and I think that's part of it.
You know, your story is wonderful. I don't know how many people know that if you go back to the beginning of your career, you promised your mom and dad that when the $160 that you borrowed ran out, you'd come home from New York.
Right.
I mean, they must have been terrified to let their 17-year-old go.
Well, being an only child, you can imagine, you know, I mean, it wasn't easy, I'm sure. Matter of fact, I have great admiration for them, you know, thinking back on it, that they were able to do that.
Little town in Pennsylvania. Is that brewery that they own still producing?
It's still there. We don't own it any longer. Matter of fact, it was just sold a year ago, you know, much to my disagreement. I wasn't for it, but they had to. But it still bears the name. Stoney's Beer. It's still the Jones Brewing Company.
Isn't that great?
So,
and you were able to keep your real name too. I mean, all of those things must have ultimately made your mother and father so proud of you.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Any memories of when they saw Oklahoma or Carousel or any of those movies that you did?
They were delighted. You know, Oklahoma. They came for the premiere to California, and they had a Surrey with the fringe on top, and both my parents rode in the Surrey down Hollywood Boulevard for the premiere of Oklahoma.
That was a role that was as sought after.
I sang and read for the producer and the director of the motion picture, but at that point in time, they said I really was too inexperienced to play the role of Laurie. I'd never done anything. I was just out of, as you said, the small town. So they put me in a show called Me and Juliet, and while I was in Chicago playing the role of Juliet, a small part in the show, they decided, after testing everybody in New York, everybody in Hollywood, even unknowns, they came back to me for some reason. And this was like 6 months later. And decided I should test and sent me to California to test for the role of Laurie with Gordon MacRae testing for Curly. We tested together.
Which probably also helped because you two were so perfect.
I think it did.
Where were you and how did you get the notice that you had been cast?
I went back to Chicago, went back into the show, Me and Juliet. And 3 weeks later, my agent called me and said, "Hello, Laurie." And that's how I knew I was
unbelievable. Do you have a sense when you're young and you're inexperienced in a way that this is the beginning of a great career, or do you take it as it comes, one step at a time?
Well, you know, I really didn't know about a career. I was so naive and so new in the business. I hadn't done anything. And so I thought this happened to everybody.
Boy,
you know,
it doesn't.
It wasn't until 15 years later that I said, wait a second, what happened to me? This doesn't happen to everybody.
You know, you've managed, too, what is amazing to me. You have 4 boys, and all of them have stayed away from drugs, and all of them have established themselves in one way or the other in life. And in Hollywood, that can't be easy. I'm sure you've been asked this 100 times. But there must have been times as a mother when you wondered, especially with them in the business.
Very much so. Oh, sure. You know, the difficult role was raising them, I think, with a sense of value, particularly living in a place like Beverly Hills. You know, when kids were driving Rolls Royces at 16 and so forth, and being in show business, which is a fantasy life, you know, at best. So that was the hard part.
And for David, here he was, Partridge Family,
sure.
working with Mom, making good money. He must have wanted things.
Stepmother, you know,
but
stepmother. Well, his mother doesn't like it too well when she hears me referred to as his mother.
But you weren't you at that point? Was he living under your roof?
No, no.
So his mom was making those decisions in terms of what he was able to have.
Pretty much so. Yeah. I really didn't get to know David until we did the Partridge Family, basically. I mean, as an adult, you know, I of course had him on weekends as a child, but he lived with his mother. And so we really became really good friends when we did it on an adult level, you know.
Was that experience a good one, the Partridge
Family?
Family?
It was wonderful.
Why?
It was wonderful. For me, I know a lot of performers aren't thrilled with doing a television series, but for me, I had been doing motion pictures. I'd been on location all over the world. I was so tired of traveling, and it came at the right time for me. I could stay home, be with my children. I loved the role. We had a good time. You know, we had a good rapport, all of us. It was like a second family for me. And I knew where I was going to be, what I was going to be doing for 6 months. And then I was off 6 months, and that was 5 years.
Isn't that great?
So it was great.
Those young people you worked with, I mean, you must be thrilled at Susan Day's success.
Yes.
And she has had a lot of her own personal struggles with anorexia and other things.
Yes.
Did you see that? Was that evident
Yes,
when you were working with her?
It was. It was when we were working together. She was extremely thin and never ate. And for lunch, she would have a carrot, you know. And it was to such a degree that the palms of her hands started to turn yellow. Oh. And so we knew something was wrong, you know. But at that time, anorexia was not as well known, you know, and well diagnosed as it is now. So.
And part of the disease is the ability to cover up and not let people know. But thank God she's done very well. Yes, how about Danny Bonaduce? Has it bothered you? Because Danny was here not long ago doing well, and then he was in possession of some narcotics, but now he's in treatment?
He's in treatment, and the station, he was doing so well as a disc jockey in Philadelphia, which is his hometown, and the station gave him his job back, which I was so happy to hear, because he was really on top. He'd come through so many struggles, Danny, you know, with drugs before that, and then, you know, he was off, and then, unfortunately, this last episode, but I think he's going to be all right.
You know, the story of you and Marty Ingels is one that is so amazing. For the audience, if you know Marty, I mean, you know that he's a character. He's the most outgoing person.
Yes.
And yet, when you first met him, he was, and he still is to some degree, suffering from something pretty awful.
Yeah, agoraphobia, which is fear of the marketplace, I guess they call it. But Marty is not only agoraphobic, he has a lot of phobias. I mean, he's very phobic as a person, but he's come, you know, probably 90% of the way at this point in time.
You met him, it was at an outing, outdoor outing or something?
It was on Michael Landon's lawn at an art exhibit.
Was that his first time out in a while?
First time out in 9 months.
So you meet this man who really isn't going out of his home. Now, does he automatically share with you what he's going through?
Oh, yes, yes. He didn't quite say it on our first date, but I realized that for the first few dates that we didn't go anywhere. You know,
that's a clue.
We either spent them in his car, or he had a motorhome. He took me on a date in a motorhome, you know, so I realized that a restaurant wasn't easy. And then he told me what was going on and the problem he had.
And you helped him struggle through it?
Oh, yeah.
Now it's been 10 years?
12 years.
12 years?
We have a book coming out
I know.
September.
Talk about that. Why are you writing that?
It's fun, and we decided, you know, people keep saying to both of us, just as you sort of intimated, you know, we're so different. I mean, you know, he comes from a totally different background than I do. How did we get together? And everybody asked the question, what was your courtship like? How could you possibly share the same feelings and needs and so on? And that's what the book is about. And it's humorous as well as having a lot of pathos, you know. Obviously, Marty has the two sides, being the clown that he is. And that my background was, you know, your typical WASP Pennsylvanian, and he was a Brooklyn Jewish boy. And his life before meeting me, my life before meeting him, and then how we got together, then our life after that.
You could title it Opposites Attract.
Well, it's called Shirley Jones and Marty Ingels, An Unlikely Love Story.
That's nice. Did you ever have any close calls? 17 years old, admittedly naive, in this crazy wacko business. Were there ever times when you knew somebody was hitting on you, or you were maybe in jeopardy?
Oh, sure. I mean, that happened, you know, quite a bit in the beginning. But for whatever reason, I had a very stable home life, and I was, you know, kind of one of those old souls that sort of was, you know, kind of knew what I was doing and very in control of myself.
And so leaving home didn't mean acting out, staying out all night, getting involved in that kind of stuff.
Not at all, no. Leaving home for me was work, training, you know, ambition, fun too, but it was mostly that. Not that I wasn't scared. I mean, I had some moments when, you know, being in New York City at 17 is pretty scary.
Not to mention probably your mother's sleepless nights. I'm
right,
sure you've thought a lot about that.
Sean, at the moment, is in Toronto doing a show called They're Playing Our Song.
Oh, good show.
Uh-huh. And he just finished 6 months in the West End in London doing Bus Stop with Jerry Hall. And he's producing a television series this fall called Over My Dead Body with Edward Woodward.
Great. But is his first love the stage?
Yes, he loves it.
Got that from his mom, huh?
Yeah, he loves it.
Patrick has a new film that is getting such rave reviews. called Constant Companions?
Longtime
Companions.
Longtime Companions.
Hard for you to watch that. It's a story, isn't it, of two gay men who...
It's four couples, four gay couples, and all of which, I believe it's all of which, it's at some point in the film, acquire AIDS. And you see the taking care of, you see the whole thing from the beginning. You see it starts on Fire Island where they just discover the AIDS virus, you know. And you see the progression of these couples, and it's very difficult to watch. Wonderful film, though.
Was it difficult for him to do
done.
that film?
Yes, it was difficult. It was
Why?
difficult.
What did he share with you?
Well, it was difficult in many ways to play that kind of a role, you know. He wasn't sure he wanted to play a homosexual person, number one. Number two, a dying AIDS victim, you know. It's such it's a story that needs to be seen, but still there are so many people out there that kind of shrink away from it, you know, and don't want to see it. So all those decisions had to be made, but I think that he made the right decision. It's a wonderful film.
Just for a minute, the leading men you worked with, it's unbelievable in your films. I mean, James Stewart and Henry Fonda in one film, Marlon Brando and David Niven in The Bedtime Story. You had an experience with Marlon Brando.
Well, I think every leading lady had an experience with Marlon Brando.
Yeah, but you're here. I want to hear yours.
You know, it wasn't anything overt, except that, you know, I was in his dressing room. He took me into his dressing room and actually vaguely said, you know, that he basically had an affair with most of his leading ladies, and, you know, how did I feel about that? And I said, well, I didn't. So, I mean, and that was as simple as that.
He wasn't subtle.
No.
At all.
So,
was he good to work with? You said he'd just come off of Mutiny on the Bounty.
Yeah.
And he was angry.
He was very angry about that film. He wasn't really happy doing it, and there were a lot of problems. And basically, Marlon loved comedy. I mean, he really wanted to do comedy more than anything, and this was a comedy, so he was happy. He loved David Niven. He liked the director. We got along well, you know. The only problem I had was that he would do an enormous amount of takes on every scene. You know, I mean, 60 takes was nothing for him.
Do you have are you in
difficult.
touch with him at all? Because with his son
No.
Christian's problems, he's
No.
probably in a lot of pain at this
No,
point.
Marlon's a very private man, you know, and doesn't really do the Hollywood scene at all.
No.
So.
You are so involved in, well, there are two things we need to talk about here. One is why you're in town, but just quickly, you had a hysterectomy, you talk about menopause, you say you never felt better, and you're really
That's
an
right.
advocate of getting whatever has to be done over with.
Absolutely, and a big advocate of estrogen therapy. So I think that it's the best thing that ever happened to us.
And you're not concerned about side effects? There is
No.
that?
No.
No?
No. Well, the fact that I had a hysterectomy, and of course I've had no breast cancer or anything like that, and I've never felt better. I mean, this was 5 years ago, and I've been on estrogen therapy since. Now I wear the patch, which is the newest form, by
Right.
the way, which is wonderful.
But in other words, menopause
So-
is still misunderstood, needs to be dealt with, and we
Absolutely.
need more.
I do seminars talking to women around the country, and it's amazing with women being so aware now and in the workforce, and we're living well into our 80s, they're still in the dark where menopause is concerned.
You are in town for something so special. In this area right now, the Warner Cable Company is carrying the American Movie Classics Cable Network.
Yes,
it's a
they
whole
are.
network, and it features those films you love to just veg out with and go back in time with.
Veg out is exactly what I do.
No, it's true, though. You grab a blanket on a Saturday afternoon or whenever you hopefully have
know.
some time, and you watch those great films.
It's wonderful.
Now, you'll be doing what? One of the hosts?
I'm going to be one of the hosts it's called Matinee Classics. It'll be probably Friday afternoons around 5 that they'll be shown. And the films will be some of my own, you know, probably musicals, family fare primarily, and just some of the old classics. And the AMC channel, American Movie Classics channel, is so wonderful because there are no commercials,
Yeah, isn't that
no
great?
colorization,
Great.
you know, and uncut, and you see them just the way they were. And the host, Bob Dorian, is so great because he gives you all the wonderful behind-the-scenes facts of all the actors and where it was made and the director, and, you know, it's really
now,
a sensational
Debbie Reynolds
channel.
is included in this as a host. Omar Sharif, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Ernie Borgnine. Wow, what a lineup. Isn't
Yeah,
that great?
It's exciting. I'm very happy to be a part of it.
So if you're a Warner
really
Cable
am.
subscriber, you better call them and ask them about the American Movie Classics Cable Network, and maybe the other cable carrier will get
You'll
wind
love
of it
it.
and carry it
Really
as
will
well.
love
I would
it.
like that.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Nice to see
Be
you.
well.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the things you're doing and the
Thank you.
advocacy that you're involved in with
Oh.
women's issues and everything.
That's nice. You
And
too.
You look so great. It's
So
wonderful.
do you.
Nah, no.
New mommy, 2-year-old baby.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah, amazing,
great.
huh?